welcome to S02E10 of Good Game Well Played. My name is Hingers, and this is my show.
Rat! What are you doing? And why do you have that? I'm going home. Hello and welcome to Good Game Well Played. I'm Hingers and I am back from the Comedy Festival to bring you all the latest and greatest informative sentences about the most important, least important thing. Today on the show, we go deep on college esports, but first, let's do the news. And we start with League of Legends news, as this week LCS EU and NA both wrapped up. In North America, Counterlogic Gaming have taken their second consecutive LCS NA split win, defending their title and besting Team Solo Mid 3-2 in the best of 5 final in Mandalay Bay, Las Vegas. Going 2-all into Game 5, CLG took an early lead before TSM fought back, only to lose a decisive team fight where they were dominated by CLG. CLG also beat TSM in the LCS finals of August last year, which made this something of a grudge match.
What a series. And what an ending.
Meanwhile, in Europe, G2 Esports have won the EU LCS title, taking on last year's World semi-finalists Origin in Rotterdam. Going into Game 4 with G2 up 2-1, Origin founder Xpeke subbed himself into the mid lane as Power of Evil was underperforming. However, this final boss mode was not enough, and Origin walked away defeated. G2 took the game and then the series 3-1. The Korean and Chinese leagues wrap up later this week. And in unionized labor news of sorts, publisher Wargaming is set to create a professional union of players for their games like World of Tanks and World of Warships. The Cyprian company said, "We don't want it to become a wargaming organization. We want the pro players to run it for the pro players. But we want to help them with things like legal advice and extra security so that they are better protected." There are currently no specific details on what form this would take, but it is interesting that this appears to be an initiative by the games company and not by the players. And finally, in injury and retirement news, after a phenomenal 2016 run with a host of top 4 finishes, North American Smash Pro Aziz Hax Al-Yami has announced recurring hand problems will force him out of professional play. In a blog post, the New Yorker said, "I guess this means I'm retired again. I'll be honest, at this point, there's a chance I never make a full return. My left hand feels ruined beyond belief. In the past few months, I tried my best to rest a lot so that I could attend a few tournaments, but it eventually caught up to me." Hax plans to spend more time analysing and critiquing Smash play from the sidelines. Alright, that is it for the news. Let us talk college esports. This month, Blizzard's Heroes of the Dawn, an InterVarsity Heroes of the Storm competition, wrapped up with Arizona State's The Real Dream Team beating the University of Texas Arlington's Mavericks 3-0 in the final. Their prize? $25,000 worth of college tuition for up to 3 years. And Blizzard aren't the only company organising collegiate tournaments for their games. Riot also runs ULOL for budding League of Legends students, and Super Evil Megacorp have just announced a partnership with CSL to run college esports for their upcoming MOBA Vainglory. And people all over the world are getting super excited about this as it's happening because college and esports and legitimacy and scholarships. But a closer look at how traditional college sports work in America asks a lot of questions, ones that put esports at a bit of a crossroads. Yes, it's super exciting that you can play video games to get a sweet education. But if esports follows models set up by traditional sports, then I, for one, have some concerns. For the most part, this is taking place in America, where the college system is different in many ways to what we have here in Australia. For example, in America, college sports are huge. College football crowds regularly attract over 100,000 people to their games, just to watch students play other students in American football, while literally millions more tune in to watch the television and online broadcasts. On one level, this obviously bodes well for esports, as college esports represent a huge potential market for that thing we love. But there are dangers that come along with that. College sports in the US are administered by groups and bodies like the NCAA, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, who in particular have very specific rules for student athletes regarding sponsorship and payment deals. Because college sports are defined as amateur, it means that payment for student athletes takes the form of scholarships, that is, reduced or free college tuition, and in some cases, housing support. Meanwhile, those huge crowds and fans and television viewership numbers are producing millions and sometimes billions of dollars of revenue for universities all over the US. And because the NCAA forbids players from working extra jobs during the school year or even licensing their likeness or image to sponsors, some student athletes are struggling to make ends meet. In 2013, the National College Players Association released a study which estimated that as many as 86% of all college athletes were living below the poverty line. Like, I was a poor student once, and I lived off ramen and homebrew. I had a part-time job and didn't have to train like 40 hours of football a week or whatever. So what does this mean for esports? Well, right now, there are no national governing bodies or player unions for college esports. For the most part, the collegiate esports leagues are run by the developers, like Blizzard or Riot, or by independent third parties like CSL. And it means for now, they don't have the stringent player payment and sponsorship rules like they do for traditional college sports. However, in recent years, it has become more popular for colleges to begin offering athletic scholarships for esports players. Currently, Robert Morris University in Chicago offers esports scholarships for League of Legends, Dota 2, Hearthstone, and CSGO, as does the University of Pikeville in Kentucky, who focuses primarily on League. In fact, RMU has gone as far as to build a heavily sponsored training facility, complete with cool chairs and a colour scheme. Both Robert Morris University and UPike are small private colleges who have received a lot of media attention for their scholarship programs. However, neither have really made a huge impact on the national collegiate esports scene. In fact, because there are no rules governing the Wild West of collegiate esports right now, RMU has struggled to maintain its players, with one of their early recruits, pop star Adrian, now just known as Adrian, being signed to Chinese league team LMQ within months of starting college. Under NCAA rules, this kind of professional poaching would not be allowed, and Adrian would have been committed to the RMU scholarship program. Adrian, however, now plays support for Immortals, who recently won the North American LCS Spring Round Robin stage before finishing third overall after the playoffs. Now look, there are a few different arguments that supporters of sporting amateurism put forward for the NCAA's stringent rules. For one thing, it's meant to be for the love of the game and recaptures some sort of spirit of yesteryear before big money and professional sport ruined everything. But to me, this seems like a bit of an excuse for corporations and universities to exploit talented student athletes for sweet cash money. And maybe there's an argument that these students are getting an education, and that's worth more than a paid salary. But in America, college prices are artificially inflated so that scholarships are a commonplace necessity for most people. Similarly, there is evidence that at some schools, student athletes aren't even getting a good education. For example, in 2014, it was revealed that the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill was committing widespread academic fraud in order to allow their student athletes to maintain grades and stay in school, even though they weren't actually learning anything. A perhaps more believable argument is that the income from hugely popular sports like football and basketball funds less profitable, less popular sports like, fencing and caber toss or whatever. And maybe this could be a good thing for esports. We could have giant esports behemoths like League and Dota funding less known competitions in things like Banjo-Kazooie speedruns and, the original Mortal Kombat, but only on Sega Master System 2 where there weren't enough buttons, so you had to just A for punch and B for kick, not high and low. But this is all just context to say that these are pitfalls for collegiate esports to avoid. While scholarships are in and of themselves a great thing, it's the fraud, exploitation and poverty associated with many of them that is worrying. Something else to consider is that an esports athlete's career can be much shorter and skews much younger than a lot of traditional athletes. For example, if you committed 3 years of your life between 18 and 21 to play for All-American University, a university with such a corny name I thought I made it up, but then I googled it and apparently it actually exists. If you committed 3 years of your life to play for them, then there's every chance that those could have been the best years of your playing career. Bearing that in mind, it's also important to consider injuries. For a lot of student athletes, there is no academic recourse if you're injured playing college sports. Would esports college athletes similarly lose scholarships due to injuries? And what if the injuries are long-term? For example, there is widespread evidence now that the concussions associated with American football cause long-term brain damage, that is depression, memory loss, and dementia. If you're playing professional football, at least you're being financially compensated for this. But if you're a college kid on a scholarship where you mightn't even be getting a proper education, well then there's a lot of risk for no guaranteed reward. Now obviously in esports people don't physically butt heads, so there's less chance of concussion-related brain injuries. But given how this model has been crafted in traditional sports, the question is worth asking. I think all of us are excited when we hear news like this that brings esports more and more into the mainstream. But it's important to remember that just because traditional sports have followed a certain route, that doesn't mean that esports should as well. There are a lot of questions about the current NCAA model, and esports has an opportunity to distinguish itself from traditional sports at this important crossroads. Alright, that is it for today. Let us know what you think about the potential exploitation of esports athletes in colleges via Facebook and or Twitter, or as always, you can try and guess whatever personal details of mine you want. Until next week, Hingers out! Was this here the whole time? She put that there? What do you think about that? Hingers out!